Okay, let me introduce myself a little bit, and then I'm going to get you all to stand up and do something with me for a second. And I am a filmmaker. I am a multimedia producer. I make websites. I do social media. I do a lot of stuff in one life. And in the other life, I am also an explorer of the inner world. And I'm an amateur, just like all of us are. And I like to explore what it means to be who I am. And I want to share that with you today. And I'm going to talk about that. And I'm going to take you through a series of exercises and ideas I'm going to share with you today. So the first thing I want to do is that you've all had a good lunch and you've all been talking very loudly. I heard when I came downstairs, all this excited leadership energy going on here. So let's get up for a moment. Everybody stand up, please. And I want you all to, we're going to let out some energy, okay? We're going to let out some energy. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to rub our hands together, okay? Hard, 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 hard. Come on, really hard. Can you generate the heat in your hands? Okay, put your hands out and go, ah, ah, ah. Okay, one more time. Come on, again. Ah, that was better. Now clench your left foot a little bit and left hand. So feel the left foot and the left hand. Clench it, right? Now clench your right and your right foot in your right hand, right? Clench both and pull up the energy. Up your spine and lift your hands up. Ah! And drop down. Just relax. Ah, that was good. Thank you. All right, sit down. So that got you all energized a little bit. All right. So what I'm going to do is, I'm sure many of you have been to exercises of spirituality and who am I and questions and things like that. But we're going to approach it a little bit differently. I want some of you to just answer the question for me as to who you think you are. So I need a couple of volunteers. So just tell me who you are. Introduce yourself to me. And I'll introduce myself to you. So who wants to start? Go on, Chandrika, you start.
I am a girl. I'm an Indian. I am a student. I am a thinker, I'm an optimist, I'm an environmentalist. I'm out.
Very good, very good. Anybody else want to introduce themselves? Thank you. Thank you. Come on, volunteers. Anybody have something different to say, something about themselves that they want to share with the world about who I am? Anybody? Okay, I'll start with me. Now, when I think about who I am, right, I could start with, well, maybe I'm my mother's child, right? I was born somewhere. I was, there's a little me that has a name that was called, I was called Ranjit Raja Choudhury. I think my mother had big plans for me. And when you think about it, here I was born in Africa. So my identity was a bit confused in the early days. I didn't know whether I was Indian or I was African, but I grew up in an Indian family. We'd connect to India. Or was I going to be a rock star one day? I don't know. These were all things. So as I grew up, I started to think about, was I a member of a family? Because at first you don't have a self-identity. You are your mother's child, or you are a brother or a sister, or you're somebody's, grandchild, or you're something to somebody else, right? But then as you go on, you become father, husband, different roles you take on, right? And then I also, you said I'm Indian, right? So am I Indian, or am I African, or am I a citizen of the world, So how, when I start thinking about who I am, I'm going from a little circle that's me as an individual, and I'm expanding my circles outwards and outwards and outwards, further and further, right? I can go even further than that. I could be a citizen of the earth, or I could be a man or a woman. Or am I a biological entity? Am I molecules and atoms and DNA and there are parts of me that were probably here at the Big Bang. And there are parts of me now that are changing in every minute I speak. So even who I was before I arrived here has changed since I've been here. I'm not the same person I was yesterday, 5 minutes ago. I am not just a human being. I am stardust. I am stuff that the entire cosmos is made of. You know, when they discovered the God particle, they felt that at that moment of the Big Bang, when the Higgs boson particle emerged, from that, everything that the universe came into being from that one little seed of particles, right? So we were probably all there at some level at that very moment. And we are now here, right? And these particles have continued. So am I stardust? Or now we move to an interesting thing, which is that am I in the brain? Am I a projection of my mind? You think? The difficult thing for us is that who I think I am depends on exactly what I am feeling when I wake up in the morning, right? If I wake up in the morning and I am stomach ache and I'm depressed, do you think that day is going to be a good day for me? Do you think I'm going to get up and I'm going to say, oh, I'm a wonderful leader, I'm a tGELF person, I'm going to change the world? No. I'm going to get up and I'm going to have a miserable day, right? Unless I figured out a way to tune my mind back to who I am over and over and over again. Beyond the mind, just the brain, you know, if you look at the neurochemistry of the brain, it is possible to retrain your neural pathways. It is possible to adjust your habit, to change your habits. It is now, behavioral psychology, neuroscience, and contemplative traditions are showing that it is possible to rewire your brain no matter how old you are, right? So even the question of who I am right now, based on what I thought this morning or what I think, can be altered by my efforts. And this is not Eastern mysticism, this is neuroscience talking today, right? There's a whole school in America right now called positive psychology, which is looking at training yourself to be happy, you know, and things like that, right? So you can actually transform your neural networks, no matter what age you are, to actually go towards the things you want. Am I more than just my mind? Am I more than just the brains and the neurochemistry and the particles and the, you know, atoms and the Higgs boson, or am I more than all that? This is where we start to move towards the ideas of consciousness or the ideas of wisdom traditions. This is where science kind of gets a little blurry. I think that all of you at some point also realize that beyond the body, the family, the citizenship, you are also value-based members of society. You're all doing what you're doing because you have certain values that define you. What are some human values that you feel define the better person that you'd like to be or are trying to be in your life right now? Compassionate is a good one. Okay. This table, anybody?
Enthusiasm.
Enthusiasm. Positivity. That's a good value?
Integrity.
Integrity. Very necessary today, right? Very necessary today. This table?
Ambitious.
Ambitious. That's a value. That means, but is it ambition at any price?
Ambitious while you're still happy with yourself. And that's good, yeah. And humility.
Humility. Who said humility? Ah, I like humility. That's a good one. That's a sense of, well, how would you describe humility?
Don't think too much of yourself. Even if you achieved in life, you don't really boast about yourself. Even in your head, you don't think that you're superior to someone else.
Does that make you act more morally in the world?
Yeah, maybe because all the values at the end of it, they all come together in some sense. There's a connection between all these values.
A couple of things I saw missing was courage. You know, to do what you guys are going to do in the next few years takes a lot of courage, right?
Ambition requires courage.
Ambition requires courage. A kind of fearlessness that says that I'm willing to take a risk and a chance, you know. I've made a list of certain things that at tGELF also, and what we are sort of, what defines me, for example, is at the very basic level is my skill sets, right? I am a good creative director. I can tell stories. I can make films. I can do web. I can communicate reasonably well, right? I can write. So these are skills I have that can actually define how I can contribute to society, right? They also define how I earn a living in society, right? So skills are important, but skills that define leadership traits, which you all are being involved in with life and other things that you've seen over the last few years, are skills that matter, like empathy, compassion, things like this, that do you feel for another enough in your own actions, right? Do you want to make the world a better place? Do you feel the need to reach out and do something? These are the needs that define you. So I think that if we were to look at skills, that's important. Ethics is very important, right? What moral standards do I live by, right? Am I prepared to tell a lie? Am I prepared to hurt someone to get what I want? These are all the things that happen in the world today. Integrity, honesty, compassion, altruism. And the very important one is that, are you willing to act in the world? Right? Do you have that desire, that you wake up in the morning, and even though you have a stomachache, even though you have a headache, you really want to do something, right? That's a good defining value to have, right? That feeling inside. And then, of course, all of that requires courage. And courage is about the ability to just be willing to take that step forward and say, I will do this. I don't want to see what the peer is doing, what the group is doing, but I am willing to stand up and do this. Right? And the one we're going to work on today is something which I call the higher self. I don't want to go into religious and spiritual language with this, but the higher self here means that inside each of us is a voice or a conscience or a intuitive individual, instinctive self, that when we listen to that voice, it actually guides us along the right way. I'm going to take a little short story from, a little clip from Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs, when he, and I'm not encouraging all of you to do this, but when he dropped out of college, right, he hung around for a while on campus, and he learned calligraphy and typography, right? Everybody's heard this story, right? This is that little clip where he talks about the fact that if he had not done that, right, if he had not found inspiration in creativity, he would never have founded Apple, and he would never have transformed the PC world, right? So I just want you to watch this little clip.
Perhaps the best calligraphy instruction in the country. Throughout the campus, every poster, every label on every drawer was beautifully hand calligraphed. Because I had dropped out and didn't have to take the normal classes, I decided to take a calligraphy class to learn how to do this. I learned about serif and sans serif typefaces, about varying the amount of space between different letter combinations, about what makes great typography great. If I had never dropped in on that single course in college, the Mac would have never had multiple typefaces or proportionally spaced fonts. And since Windows just copied the Mac, it's likely that no personal computer would have them. Of course, it was impossible to connect the dots looking forward when I was in college, but it was very, very clear looking backwards 10 years later. Again, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards.
So, what's his point there? That you've got to have that inner voice that you can listen to, because you're not going to be able to plot out the perfect course forward in your life, right? We're going to make mistakes. We are going to make mistakes, right? But if we are true to ourselves and we are true to those values that define us, right, then the likelihood of the dots connecting when we look back 10 years from now will be far greater, right? That they'll connect towards what you thought you were going to be, right? And what I want to talk about today with you is cultivating that voice, that inner self, that higher self, that will help you monitor and observe your journey as you go, so that in some way you can keep listening to those values and that intuitive part of you, right, that we'll go towards, okay? Inspiration is everywhere, right? I mean, think about it, right? We are in a kind of networked, you know, today even more so than ever, your brain, your mind is connected far beyond anything ever possible before. Through the internet, through social media, through just the viral connectivity of ideas spreading. Whether you watch TED or whether you watch anything else, it's coming at you, right? So you don't have to go very far now for wisdom, right? It's there. But choosing the voices that come to you in this vast network is a filtration process. It's a process of eliminating and filtering out the rubbish and trying to pick out the best things that will work for you. So where do you find inspiration? In Steve Jobs' time, there was no internet to do it with, right? So he dropped out, he got accidentally into a calligraphy class, you know, he ate at the Hare Krishna temple, he was a meditator. You know, there was a point in his life where he almost gave up everything and became a spiritual teacher, right? You know, he would have been sitting, and in one of the interviews they said about him, they said he would probably have been the most famous Zen or Buddhist teacher in California at that time. But that's if he had chosen that path, right? But no, he didn't choose that path. You know, accidentally he got into computers because he thought that was a quick way to make a buck at first, right? And then accidentally he and Wozniak developed the revolution, you know. So these accidents are fortuitous and not unpredictable, right? You have to believe that. If you believe that you and the entire universe in some way, and I'm saying universe in a very abstract form here, I don't mean every particle and every cosmos, which you are really, are connected in some way, right? There is the ability for our intuitive selves to pull in information that will be good for that journey. Now, how many of you agree with that philosophy? Does everybody believe that intuitively, gut, that you can pull in inspiration? Raise your hand if you believe that intuition is a very strong part of your life. All right. A lot of you believe that that inner voice is probably the truest you, it seems. Is that correct? A lot of you believe that? Yes? All of you have believed in your inner gut at some level? Yeah. On every big decision. Good. Good. So guess what? You're already spiritual beings. All right. So what you think is what you are. And I was saying earlier, the state you wake up in the morning, the physical condition you're in, right? If your mind is well trained, right? Even if you wake up with pain, you can overcome it. You know, you're seeing it for what it is. You are, you know, there's that old saying of make friends with your suffering, because that suffering can actually teach you something about yourself. You know, have you heard that feeling of that? You know that if somebody says something mean to you, or you're feeling physical discomfort, it can actually be a learning experience, right? That's what we're talking about here. So the question I have for you is that, can you train your mind? So the step one of this is to first understand that you are not just this little mind. You're not the friend. You're not how many people like you on Facebook. You are not how many people think of you in the day and call you on your mobile. You're not that person, okay? You are much bigger. You are much, much bigger. Expand your imagination. Please reach out. You know, define yourself by other terms than relationships, than self-value. You know, look at yourself as your values, and then look at yourself as cosmic, look at yourself as planetary, look at yourself as human. You know, go outwards and be empathetic, be compassionate. Step two, how many people here meditate? Or even tried meditation? Ah, anybody from here? Anybody who has been trying meditation or dabbling? Little bit? Okay. So the difficulty with meditation is that most people really don't know what meditation is, right? So meditation means, and this is, you can read across the books of philosophers and you'll find them all come back to the same truth, that am I fully awake in this moment, right? I mean, am I really here? When I talk to somebody, am I really listening to that person? When I say thank you, am I really being grateful in that moment, right? Gratitude. These are things we don't think about, but this is what mindfulness means. Mindfulness means being aware at every moment of my physical, my mental, and my interaction with everything. right? You know, and this is what meditation really means. Meditation means, yeah, you can practice techniques to tune it, right? Breathing techniques and pranayama and do yoga or jogging in the morning or whatever you want to do, right? But really, it is about being ever present in every moment of your life if you can. It's not easy because, 24 hours, X number of seconds, you're always tuning to either the past or the future. How often are we actually right here, right now? If I sat here talking about this stuff and I'm thinking about, oh, I really need a samosa out there, or I really need to pick up my child at 5 o'clock, which I do, am I thinking, am I really here with you? I'm not, right? I'm elsewhere. I'm in the past. I'm in the future. But I'm not here with you, right? So I want you all to practice. That is what mindfulness means. And I'm going to show you a technique today to become aware of yourself, right? This is not a meditation, but I'll sit down in a few minutes and I'll show you a technique that I learned many years ago that showed me how to become mindful. All of you want to make a change in the world, right? All of you are doing this, are passionate about this because you want to make a change. So how can you make a change in the world if you have no idea what you want that world to look like, or what it's going to feel like, or what's going to happen to 7 billion people tomorrow, or what's going to happen to your country without governance, or what's going to happen if you're not able to detach and pull away in a minute-by-minute basis? How are you going to make a contribution? The third thing step is, I'll talk about this later, is what I call conscious evolution, right? And conscious evolution it's a phenomenon that's been around for a few years, idea that talks about the fact, and it starts with Sri Aurobindo talked about it. And I don't know how many of you have heard of Sri Aurobindo? Oh, everybody, great. And Sri Aurobindo talked about this idea that human beings, while physically we have evolved to this point of our brain, spinal cord structure, there is a continuing, ongoing psychic and consciousness evolution going on also, right? And this was taken up also by philosophers in the West called Kessler and de Chardin and others who have worked on this idea, and Ken Wilber today, right? Who talk about this fact that if we want to have a better, more integrated, spiritual, conscious world where everybody's aware of their responsibilities, we have to lift up and evolve in a consciousness level. Does that make sense? That means we have to continue to evolve. We can't just stop growing. We can't just stop changing, right? So the journey towards that awareness is actually evolution in that theory. Step 4, which is step 4, is now once I have developed these techniques, right, then I have to live in this knowledge. Now that really is that, all of you have read the tGELF thing that says impact to action, right? That you're going to act in the world, right? So the more centered you are, the more balanced you are, right? The more in tune with yourself in this moment you are, the more you will be able to act correctly in the world. Does that make sense? For many years I did Aikido, a martial art, right? I did Aikido for many years, and we did sword work. And the masters would teach us that we had to sit in meditation for 15 minutes, empty our minds, before we were allowed to put one strike of the sword, right? Now, it was quite amazing because at first there was a lot of resistance in my body. I want to get up and hit the sword. I wanted to hit something, right? I wanted to fight, right? But once you start doing it, you realize that when I then cut with that sword at the end of that 15 minutes, I'm actually fully aware of the blade, the sword, the handle, what I'm hitting, how I'm standing, my breath. My entire awareness is 100% in that action I'm about to take, right? Now I'm using a metaphor of fighting, but actually it's not fighting. It is that inner awareness and battle that we're talking about, right? And this occurs whether you want to do it through running, jogging, meditation, samurai, whatever you want to do. These are metaphors for tuning that mind to this awareness that when I'm about to say something in a debate or a fight or a family interaction, or a group of 500 people listening to me, or I'm about to stand up and be an activist and stand at India Gate and protest something, where am I acting from? Now, I'm going to go back to meditation. Let's talk about the art of mindfulness. I'm going to show you a little technique now, and then I'll take questions after this, okay? Right. Can I borrow a chair? I'll just sit down with you. So this was taught to me by a martial arts expert, actually. If you ever look at Chinese martial arts, they teach you meditation first, Japanese and Chinese martial arts. I want you to all sit. Can you move your chairs back a little bit? No, move back. Both feet firmly on the ground. Spine straight, slightly off the back. Slightly off the back. Now, take a deep breath. And breathe out. And another breath. Watch the breath come in with your nose and breathe out with your mouth. Make a sound if it will help you calculate the breath. Keep breathing and watch the breath come in through your nose. Keep your spine straight and out with your mouth. Try and slow it down a little bit. And now lift your mind upwards as you breathe in. Straighten your spine and expand your mind now. Any thoughts come, let them flow in and out, as if you're watching them from that hill. Expand your mind further and further. You're able to see yourself and you're able to watch yourself. And keep breathing. This practice lets you come to your senses. It is the beginning of meditation. It is not meditation. These are the tools to bring you to that awareness, right? And that awareness, even if it's for a few seconds or a few minutes or a whole day, is meditation. Right? Then, how you choose to go from that, it's up to you. You want to be a better human being, you want to be a focused student, you want to be an amazing martial artist, you want to be a sports person, you want to be a compassionate human being. This is called intention, right? At that point, when the intention is thrown into that place, it will be from your higher self. And the more you practice, this goes back to what you were saying, is that sometimes when we have not practiced mindfulness, we're not listening to our higher self. We're listening to the chatter and jabber around us. And we think that's our self talking, but it's not. The more we're able to silence that chatter, right, the more the true self will come out and talk to it. Right? So on the final note on that, total awareness in the moment, recap, right? We want to bring it to that awareness. Conscious evolution, this is same as intention, what I call intention. Right? So learn to develop intention. Right? But only do intention after you have brought yourself back to your center. Then the right intentions will come out and the right practices will come out. And remember, this is a little quote I'm giving you, I am more than my body, I am more than my mind. I am pure potentiality. Anything I imagine, I can be. I am that. That can be the universe, that can be what I seek, that can be the change I want to see in the world. I am that. I am you. I am everybody in this room. Right? We're all here in mind. So live in this knowledge. And remember the golden rule. This goes back to any religion, anything, and this goes back to compassion, empathy, is that the core of all this will be that you will end up happier, you will end up more blissful, you will end up a better person, but you will also end up more compassionate and empathetic towards the whole world. And that will definitely make you a better leader, right? And a better human being. After all, that's what it's all about. So I am that. Thank you. I'll take questions if you like.
Do you think the presentation that you made, Raja, for children, for young people between 18 to say 28, do you think it's something that you really think that they can relate to and be able to practice? It's a question I have for all you young people also. What do you all think?
Good question. What do you think? That you're all between 18 and what? 25 here?
Yes.
Maximum?
Yeah.
Apart from the young ones in the back, they were children.
I'm
So-
so glad you pointed out. Keep it under the racks.
You youngsters can't contribute to this dialogue. the valid question though, valid question is that, do you think this kind of thinking is useful in your life? Can be useful in your life? Give me some thoughts. Share your thoughts.
Something of this sort that brings in a stillness of kinds in that moment. I think it brings a lot of clarity as well for us to deal with all the clutter later on.
Agreed.
So I think in that sense it's really important and something that we can.
At a very fundamental level, it is a tool. You know, if you don't think of it as spiritual, if you don't think of it as cognitive psychology, forget all that babble, right? It is a tool for making better decisions at the simplest level, right? So think about it. When how many decisions do we make in every day, right? We are continuously choosing forks for an alternative universe that we might create, right? We're continuously coming to a point and a choice has to be made. A decision has to be taken. From the simplest thing to what to wear to the complex thing of whether I should commit to something or the other, right? And each one of those decisions, if I'm able to make it from that point of breath, from that point of mindfulness, will be a better decision no matter what I think right now. So it's a tool. It is a tool and it can be learned. It's not something to be a Buddhist about. It's not something, it's a tool. You know. Remember, meditation in your life should be a practice and a way of life that you want to cultivate. It's not. Please, you know, the biggest fear that people have is that, oh, I don't know how to meditate. You know, how many of you have said that? You know, I can't meditate. I can't sit still for 5 minutes. I can't, you know, everybody says that, you know. But once you realize that meditation is just self-observation, right? Then it changes the whole paradigm. You know, how often do we actually sit and look at ourselves and our mind, right? All these techniques are just tools to get you to think about that, nothing else. This is why practice is the critical factor. So what I would suggest to you is that the same way you take 2 minutes to brush your teeth in the morning, or the same way you get up and kind of, you know, check your Facebook page or go on and do your how many messages you got on your phone over the night, right? The same tool can be a meditation for a few minutes that just brings you back, like I showed you, to am I aware of myself at this moment? And do it first thing in the morning. You know, well, you can take a jog and do it, you can exercise and do it, you can do it wherever you are. It's just that moment. How long did that meditation take? Not even 5 minutes, right? That guided thing I did with you. It's just to bring you to a place where you say, ah, okay, now I start, right? And then what happens is that as you do it more and more, and this has happened with me, is that every time I react to something now, some little voice goes off in my head. It just says, okay, am I observing? And it's not something that I've, I've got this weird person sitting up here. It's something I've cultivated. And it's something that makes me actually make better decisions. This is not overnight. This takes a while. But it's a continuous process of observation. Right? So I would not worry too much about what happens in the middle of the day, right? When you're in the midst of chaos. You know, when you're in a battle, you've got to be that samurai sword fighter. You've got to go, right? But that knowledge of how to breathe before, that's what you need to cultivate. When we realize that we are actually retraining memories and introducing new memories, right? In yoga, this is called samskaras, right? We're adding new bubbles of thought to existing bubbles that we're trying to subdue. So we don't fight the ones we're trying to subdue. We actually let them be, but we introduce new ones. And the new ones have better energy, better fluidity in us. And as they grow, the old ones subside. They just go away. You know, that's, I used to smoke. I quit smoking doing that. I introduced meditation and breath. And slowly, slowly, the need for a nicotine fix went down. You know, And it wasn't that I went, oh, I'm going to quit smoking. You know, that didn't happen, right? I quit drinking the same way. I'm sorry, I'm saying all the things I've done. Showing my age now. But if you think about it, we are a need-based animal, you know. We are actually the most needy animal possible. You know, have you ever seen animals needing as much as we do? You know, we need attention, we need fostering, we need this, we need that. Need. We all have a need for safety, right? And we then have 4 other needs that define our personality, interactions with other people and the world. The 4 are power, right? Am I in control of this situation I'm in right now? Do I have control over my environment? Am I in control right now, right? The other is fun, right? Freedom and belonging. These are our 4 fundamental needs apart from safety, right? Now, if you look at these 4 needs, right? Belonging is our desperate urge to be a part of a group or not, or be a hermit. This belonging need, this is where Facebook has exploited us to the max. We want to belong. We want to be a part of something. We belong to tGELF. We belong to India. We belong. This idea of belonging can also drive you towards being a hermit and live in a cave, or make you a... So everybody I'm dealing with has the same needs in those 4 areas as I do, right? I have a fun need. I need to go out and, make a joke from time to time. I need to play sports, so I need to have fun, right? I have a freedom need. I want to be left alone to ride my bike and travel off into the mountains and leave my wife and child behind. I have that need, right? But how do I explore that need in my life? Reflects in every one of my interactions, right? And what I did here today with you was to bring you to a place where you are able to observe those needs, right? So I remember it's all about needs. I always need something, you know? Yeah. Thank you. To you, to all of you.
tGELF, leading the change.